Hello, welcome to Talking Music. My name's Paul, and Talking Music is the channel where every song has a story. And over the next few minutes, we're going to get behind the story of the song, the facts, the information, some secrets as well. And the song in question today, the one we're featuring, is this one from the GEES, Tragedy. This song was a transatlantic #1, written by the brothers Gibb in an afternoon, and a cover version of the song by the band Steps some 19 years later went on to sell 1 million in the UK alone. The song's success is anything but a tragedy, and for the GEES it continued their phenomenal success story in the late 1970s. There are few bands and artists who have managed to stay the course like Barry, Robin and Maurice Gibb. Singers, songwriters and musicians creating a delicate pop sound in the late 60s and early 70s. Then from You Should Be Dancing in 1976, they not only jumped onto the disco bandwagon, but began shaping it. And Tragedy in 1979 was to be their last hit that would fall into the disco genre. Their success at this time was being driven by their own independence.
And in those periods, or in that sort of 67, 68, the GEES weren't so much an entity on their own, they were manipulated by the businessmen, the managements, and they were in total control in those days. The artist didn't know what was going on, and just did everything he was told. And to the point where his private life went out the window, for fear of doing something that his management wouldn't be happy with, you know. And that's how we lived in those days. And now we're no longer manipulated, which is an amazing relief to us.
We have a lot of more freedom in our sort of music. We had like the production side of it and things like that. We were limited.
Whatever we do is really our decision. Whatever we do, we just sit down and discuss with our manager Robert, and if we don't like what is happening, then he won't push it.
Their staggering worldwide success even led the brothers to think that the record-buying public would get fed up with them if they kept up this unrelenting and prolific run of hits. They seemed to be everywhere. Not long after Tragedy, they took a step back from recording for a few years and started producing other major artists performing their songs. Dionne Warwick, Diana Ross, Barbra Streisand, to name a few. And their success as producers and songwriters just continued. In the UK, the GEES are one of only a handful of artists who can boast #1 hit singles over 3 decades, the 60s, 70s and 80s. And Tragedy from 1979 was one of those chart toppers. The song was written in early 1978 in one afternoon. That particular day, the Gibbs must have been on fire. They wrote Too Much Heaven in the morning and Shadow Dancing for their younger brother Andy in the evening. And Tragedy was kind of the meat in this particular musical sandwich. In America, on their own, these 3 songs all topped the Billboard Hot 100, and Shadow Dancing was the year's bestseller stateside in 1978. Now, that's what I call a good day's work. Robin Gibb tells how the brothers would have done this.
The most important thing about writing songs and how you write them is, particularly in the case of the GEES, is that we sit around a table with a memo recorder and a tape recorder running, and we'd have a guitar or keyboard in place. The melody is the first thing that comes. The melody is the most important part of the songwriting process. That comes first, and then lyrics will apply to that afterwards, which we all write. Writing songs is a bit like playing Scrabble. You know, you always see hearing titles. You know, it's like if you play Scrabble, you're always seeing 7-letter words everywhere. You know, let's go Scrabble. It's the same with writing songs. You know, when you're in that psyche, you actually, when people say a statement, you know, you can think, well, hang on, that's a title. You know, they may not know, but you're a songwriter, so you hear titles and you hear lines, or you hear. So I hear songs in terms of, and Barry does the same thing. In terms, you get a title, it's a statement. That statement is the basis for the whole song. So it's not so much as what is the song about. The statement of the song will create that.
And Tragedy certainly was a statement that could stand as a basis for a song. It was released at the same time, simultaneously in America and the UK, and it was thrown into the commercial market at a time when it was to compete with some of the biggest dance tunes of all time: I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor, YMCA, Village People, The Freak, Chic, and Rod Stewart's disco offering, Do You Think I'm Sexy? And in terms of chart performance, it outdid them all, with the exception of Gloria Gaynor's female anthem, I Will Survive. Tragedy had the same intensity as Staying Alive, with big hooks, multiple vocals, and a pounding rhythm designed to get you up on the dance floor. The song has some very famous supporters.
When you heard that for the first time, you thought, that is, absolutely infallible. Can't go wrong.
That's it. Like, there's a lot more song than just that, but goddamn, that's enough. If it were just that for 3.5 minutes, it'd still be the biggest hit.
The chorus hits you in the face, like a proper right hook.
There's no official video to the song, which is in keeping, I suppose, with all their other 70s hits. Anything that was put out was more promotional rather than a proper constructed music video. But this, remember, was the 1970s, and the video was only to become an almost essential accompaniment to a song in the 1980s. But Tragedy was filmed during recording at the Criteria Recording Studios in Miami, Florida. The brothers were fans of that particular studio and did a lot of their work there.
It's got a great atmosphere, and the acoustics are one of the key things about it. We've tried other studios while we've been working here, and they haven't worked out. We've ended up coming back. This is not a promotion. We don't have any reason to promote Criteria. We can only say how we feel when we're recording here, and we get the same reaction from other people that have recorded here, such as the Eagles have done a bit of recording here, and odds of people that have come down through the years have never had a bad word to say about Criteria.
An NBC special on the Bee Gees in 1979 focused on the making of Tragedy and showed how the search for an explosive sound effect was created. Barry cupped his hands over a microphone and made his best impression of a small explosion with his mouth.
That's how it was done. I would just make noises on the microphone, and Carl would add all kinds of technological stuff to that.
And maybe you could do something sound-wise with them that's going to make them work as well.
Shut up and get in here.
Well, had that not worked, as this recording proves, Robin had had another suggestion.
It would be nice if we could find a bigger sound for that solo.
Great.
Bigger, rounder. All right. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's do it again. Second half of the chorus, but bring that sound in. That's great. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. When somebody stops singing something that's really interesting, as soon as he stops singing, an instrument takes over doing something that's equally interesting. And when that instrument stops and the voice comes back, the voice has to be equally interesting as the instrumental before him. So anywhere there's a space, you make an interesting situation happen.
It's funny how sometimes in the studio, the simplest things cause you the most trouble. When we were doing Tragedy, for instance, we knew we wanted the sound of an explosion to come at a certain point to accentuate the track. So we all gathered in the control booth and listened to the track back.
It might work.
Yeah, listen.
It might work.
Now, listen.
Yeah, just like I did then, to go to the mic and go, and maybe we can turn it into an explosion somehow.
What about a real explosion in the studio?
There's an Air Force base.
Well, where do we find one? I mean, you can.
Mac's got some dynamite in his office. Let's go.
Well, let me give it a go on mic before we go to get the dynamite.
All right.
Okay.
The song was a great success, which, with the Bee Gees' Midas touch at the time, was hardly surprising. Let's have a look at the two big markets, America and the UK. This is how the song fared. 24th of March 1979, it went to number 1 in America. It had been number 2 for 2 weeks prior to this, and it was to spend 2 weeks at number 1 before Gloria Gaynor was to reclaim the top spot. Tragedy spent 11 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 Top 20 and turned platinum. That's 2 million copies sold in the US alone. And in the UK singles chart, it went to number 1 3 weeks earlier. But as I've said before, progress up the American chart is always slower than progress up the UK chart because it's a much bigger market. March the 3rd, 1979, it hit the top. That was its 3rd week. It entered the charts at number 7, then up to number 2, and then number 1 on its third week on the chart, and it stayed there again for 2 weeks. And again, coincidentally enough, you can see Gloria Gaynor rising up the chart there. It was Gloria who knocked the Bee Gees off the top spot. She did it in the States, and she did it in the UK. And it turned out to be the 15th bestseller of the year. And remember, Tragedy was on the Spirits Having Flown album, and that album sold enough to make it into the top 5 best-selling albums of 1979 in the UK. Tragedy kept the Bee Gees' music machine cruising along at altitude. It was their 5th of 6 consecutive number ones in America, the world's largest pop music market. And you can see the songs there that they hit the top with. And if you take into consideration the success of younger brother Andy, whose songs were written by the Bee Gees, well, they enjoyed even more success. They were number 1 on the American Billboard Hot 100 from August 1977 through to June of 1979 for a staggering 33 weeks. For a while, quite a long while really, the brothers Gibb were simply unassailable. The Bee Gees and Tragedy. And that's it for another Talking Music video where every song has a story. Do subscribe to the channel. We have more videos which tell the story, the secrets, and the facts behind some of the world's best-known songs. So please click that subscribe button. And until the next video, I wish you well. Till then, bye-bye.